We have two recipes right now. Watch this. I close the app. I'm going to open it again. And the two recipes are there. Now you may think this is mocked, but this is actually being backed by SwiftData. Accompany me today in migrating our in-memory mocked data store to one backed by SwiftData. The first thing that we need to take for our app to use SwiftData is to declare the model. We will import SwiftData, and by importing this, we can add to our classes the add model annotation. And notice that I said classes. We cannot use structs with this. We'll be changing our recipe to final class. With this change, we no longer need identifiable or hashable. The annotation takes care of it. Same goes for the identifier. And because this is a class, not a struct, we need the initializer. We're not done with our recipe model declaration. These first 5 variables, which are value types, all good. We can leave them as is. The components in the steps, this is what in databases is called as a relationship. And we have the same in SwiftData. We have other stuff to declare, options. As you could see in the autocomplete, there were other stuff. What we're going to use is the delete rule and the inverse. So with the delete rule cascade, what it means is if the recipe is deleted, then the delete action cascades to its children. That means we delete all of the components. Inside of the components, we will have another relationship with also cascade. So the component is deleted alongside with its ingredients. And something that's very useful for SwiftData is the inverse, where we specify in this component what's the variable that refers to its parents. It's good to have the double relationship from parent to children and from children to parent. So here in component, we're going to say there is going to be, right now there isn't, we're going to get an error that will point to the recipe. And same will go for the steps. Let's move on to the next one. Ingredient, we'll do the same. An ingredient is, let's say, one of the leaf nodes in our model. So we don't need to do anything else except the initializer. Now it's actually wrong. We do need something else. We needed the inverse for this relationship. So against cascade and inverse, every ingredient will have a pointer to its parent. We don't need to do an annotation. We just need to declare the variable. We don't need to add it to the initializer. This relationship to the parent will be taken care of by SwiftData. And we don't have the error anymore. We need to solve one more error, which was for the recipe. That takes care of one of the errors here. Oh, and it's actually wrong. It's step. I wanted to do something in the UI with this step and having the ingredients, but I take that back and I don't want to complicate this anymore. Create the initializer and the reference to the parent. That's it. We have our model declared. Because of this redeclaration, well, now I need to do a little bit of cleanup in our samples by removing the ingredients from the step. And I think that will be pretty much it. One thing also to clarify, you saw how using ID was flagged by the system. It was also very fortuitous that I declared this variable as text. Some would have done description. And that actually runs into conflict with the add model annotation because it's already a stored property from that macro. So just keep that in mind. We cannot use description. I'm going to be asking Claude to clean this up. Now that we have our model, what we're missing is creating the model container and the model context. These are what hold the schema, the storage, and it's the tools that we use to insert, query, delete, and edit. The first part where we'll go is to our app. That's where we need to insert a model container. So in our window group, and before I start writing anything else, SwiftData, we need to insert a model container for recipe.stuff. So what this does is this creates the container and registers the schema for recipe. And because of what we declare within recipe, it also does it for ingredient, component, and step. All of this is thanks to the add relationship annotations that I was adding. This is also doing more, and it's also injecting the model context into the environment of every child view of this one. Now that we have this, let's use the model. So in recipe list view, we will use a query to fetch the recipes instead of getting it from the samples. Just like with the relationships, we access the attribute that we want to sort by. And given that we want to sort, let's make our first edit to the model. I'm gonna add a date added recipe. Going back here, we're gonna sort by this date added. The most recent recipes will be presented to the user. Initially, it will or sort them by the oldest one. We want the reverse of that, and that's exactly what we can do. In order, we can do reverse. And that's all that we're gonna do for now. We remember that I mentioned we could use context if we get it from the environment, since we injected the model container from our app, but we're not gonna do that now. For now, we're just querying. Now that we have our list, we can start testing the delete. What we'll do is add a slide action so we can delete our recipes using the context. So we have our query. What else do we have on SwiftData? We have the model context. Now we cannot do this with an on swipe because we're not in the form like we did in previous things. What we're gonna do instead is add a context menu so that when the user long presses, they can delete it or edit it. And this will be our first use of context. We can just ask it to delete the recipe. If we long press and we select delete, it goes away. Lava cake. And there we have it, our first use of context. Now that we're done with this, if I were to run the app, this will be empty since we're not running the preview with the samples. And we will not have a way to add recipes since our recipe view right now adds it, but it doesn't have a context. It cannot insert anything. And there's a few things that I have to add. For the short series, I took some shortcuts. So we took a few shortcuts. First of all, this view is not ready to be editing an existing recipe, which we will need. And second, it's adding ingredients. We need to add components that then will add ingredients. We'll be doing these changes with Claude since it's not the focus of the video. These are the changes that we will be doing with Claude. We will be moving the state variables of our view to an observable view model. We will also be adding an enum to the mode, so the view model will know if it's creating a new recipe or editing an existing one. We will have the title being changed again so the user knows what's happening. The view model will be initialized with the recipe, so that's just making it clear to Claude. Right now, if I were to just add the recipe and have the view model mutated, that will mean that every change the user makes immediately gets saved to SwiftData. I do not want that, so we will have the user confirm it. We will add two buttons, one at the top to dismiss in the form as a of an X, and another one in the form of a check mark, so the user confirms that they want to save the new recipe or edit the existing one. Next, we'll have one of the changes that I was mentioning. Is just instead of having the array of ingredients, we'll have an array of components that will then create ingredients. And we will have a save method in the view model. That one, I will not let Claude do it since that is the focus of the video. That one, we will do it after Claude makes all of the changes. And because the view cannot give the environment objects to the view model and its initializer, we will make sure that the views that are calling the recipe view instantiate the view model with the model context that they can get from the environment. Okay, Claude is done. So besides what you saw on screen, I did a little bit of tidying up. We moved the ingredient row and the symbol picker to separate views. There was also missing parsing the quantity when changing, updating the quantity and the unit of the ingredient. Same goes for the symbol picker. That was already doing it with the binding, but it wasn't being saved. All that we're missing now is just this save method. We're gonna be creating a new recipe from scratch. And we're gonna be passing all of the variables from the view model. We will not run an image picker yet. We'll save that for later. For now, we'll just be picking a random image from an array. These are names that our samples recipe already has. Once we're done with this, we will dismiss, which should already be something that we're doing here. And let's fix this. Okay, and let's see. Oh, before I forget, we need to use the ModelContext. I'm never using it. So for editing, it's okay. We're already using the SwiftData entity recipe, and by making these changes, the recipe is being edited and the changes are being saved. Here, however, by just creating a new recipe that doesn't mean that it's going to be saved or it's going to be part of our model, what we need to do there is use the context and we will insert our new recipe. That's all that's needed. Alrighty, we're ready to test this. Here we have our app running. As I told you, we have an empty recipe list for now. Let's use our samples to fill in one of the values. Let's do the avocado toast for a recipe. For the first part, we will show the keyboard and later we will dismiss it just so this goes faster. It works. We can use the submit key to move from the one text field to another one. We just have one ingredient section without a title. There we have our recipe. Let's tap here to save. And here we have our avocado toast. If I were to tap here to delete, well, we'll get our recipe away, but we don't want that. And if I tap edit, here we have all of the information. Let's also go to the detail. Here we have our recipe with the SF symbols as we were expecting. And let me close the app, open it back up again, and our avocado toast is still there. Let's test the edit functionality. Close it. Let's open it back up again, and the edited recipe is still there. And that was all for today. The whole app is now backed by SwiftData. We fetch our recipes via add query. The recipes persist across launches, as you could see. We can close the app, open it again, and everything is still there. Thanks to SwiftData with ModelContainer and ModelContext, our app went from a read-only demo to something that we could actually go live with. See you next time. Bye.